I wanted to talk about a kind of creepy, unexplainable experience that I had at work not too long ago. Actually, it's a couple experiences, not just one. This is by no means a video attempting to convince skeptics ghosts exist. It's merely a way for me to talk about something I witnessed when most people in my life, if I try to talk about this, just think it's, bullshit. But first, I wanted to talk about something that, to me, isn't paranormal. It was just kind of more creepy with no explanation, except for what your guess is as good as any others. In my massage room at work, there's a window. And on that window, there are a set of handprints that are placed against the glass. When I asked someone at work about it, they said they knew about them, but they had no idea where they came from. And the set of handprints have been there for quite a long time. Apparently no one could clean it off the window. So I attempted to clean it myself. And this is where it's probably even more creepy. I couldn't clean them off from the inside, but when I opened the window to clean it from the outside, I was able to clean them off. Actually, the window itself seemed kind of dirty from the outside, but the fact that handprints cleaned up from the outside, I don't know if I need to say it out loud, but it's a little unsettling, especially since this is a room where people get undressed. Alright, so now on to the ghost story. I say this with quotes because, ghost story, because I don't have proof other than what I saw, and why I can't explain away what I saw. It's nothing like meeting Kayako from The Grudge by any means, but it happened so casually, and I didn't think much of it until I had to ask myself some questions. Just to note, there was a massage therapist that used to work at this chiropractor office before me, and she is a medium. I did book an appointment with her a couple years ago, and she was pretty accurate. It was pretty good how much she could pick up. But I digress. After the first incident happened, I mentioned it to my boss and one of the receptionists that were working that day. My boss told me that the former massage therapist told them that there is a spirit in the building, but that they were on the second floor. The hallway I saw them in is directly below where the medium saw the ghost on the second floor. So is it the same ghost? I don't know. So the first time I saw, I guess it's the same ghost, but the first time I saw them, it was while I was in another massage room in that same office building, but the one I work at now has the window, but this other massage room doesn't have a window. Now this massage room just became a second storage room for a bunch of files. I was setting up my massage table for my next patient. Right as I was putting the sheets on the table, in the corner of my eye, I saw a woman pass by my room. I saw enough of her to know she was a woman, turning her head to look into my room. And she had already passed the door as soon as I snapped my head up. But my first thought was, that must have been my next patient. Though that notion fell off, because I knew who the patient was. I knew what she looked like. And from the quick details I could see only from the corner of my eye, it looked nothing like her. Also, at that time, there were no other female patients there. And it looked nothing like the receptionist. I could clearly see a tall, Caucasian woman, whereas the receptionist that was working that day is a little shorter and she's a darker-skinned Asian woman. I'm actually surprised that I could see as much detail as I did, only viewing her from the edges of my vision. So by the way, I did use a little bit of AI just to at least show you the closest to what I could, get from seeing this ghost. So I apologize for using AI. Not a lot of people like AI, but I just kind of wanted to show what I saw or the details that I could remember. So like I said, she was a white woman, a little bit more on the taller side, and she was thin. She appeared maybe middle age, like her 40s or 50s, and she wore a light colored pullover sweater, maybe like a cream color or light brown, like something you'd wear in the fall, maybe like very early winter. And she had bright blue jeans that flared at the bottom. I don't really remember the shoes. I think they were ankle boots with a small heel to them. Her hair was a light brown and pulled up into a high ponytail. It wasn't really super long or thick, so it kind of seemed like she had more fine hair. Even though a part of me knew that this wasn't the patient I was expecting, I thought, well, maybe it was, and she just appeared, differently since I didn't get a good look at her. Especially since the moment she passed my room was so quick. Like, she did a quick look into my room, and it's like she had very long strides. So where she was heading, I believed she was going to the bathroom. I made sure to record my workplace and show you what is at the end of this hallway, just for better reference. At the end of the hallway, there are 2 rooms and a back door that leads to, I guess, the back room of where the old courthouse used to be before they moved. So nobody's in that part of the building. So there's really no reason for anyone to go out that door. And it's also one of those very heavy push open doors that makes a loud clunking sound when you open it. So I would have heard this door if she went through it. But again, there's no need for anyone to go through this door unless there was an emergency to get out of the back of the building. And the room that's next to the massage room is my boss's office. Again, no real reason for anyone to come in here. And then the last room is the bathroom, the only obvious place for anyone to go. So after I saw this woman, I had a thought that it was my next patient, and she was just going to use the bathroom. But this was kind of weird. Something just told me, you better go check. Which, why? Who cares? Like, they're going to the bathroom. But something just told me, go check. You better go check. And so just something about the situation felt off. When I went to check the bathroom, I saw the door was slightly open and that the light was off. No one was in there. No one was also in my boss's office. And, like I mentioned, I never heard the back door open. So I went to the front desk to ask if there were any other female patients in the office. The receptionist said no. When I told her and the doctor what I saw, the doctor then explained that whole story with the psychic massage therapist and what she saw on the second floor. So, again, I don't really have much explanation. It was just a very strange experience. So for my second experience in the building, I had an up-close and personal encounter with this ghost, but I had no idea until a little bit later. I have this one patient that I see every other week. He gets a 50-minute full-body massage. Not to go too long into detail, but this patient is a dentist who he and his family had their own terrifying experiences in their workplace. Apparently something with demons. It's kind of crazy, actually. If that's something people are interested in, let me know. I can ask him for his stories and we can share them here. I mean, they are very interesting, whether or not you believe in the paranormal. But anyways, after his session, he told me he didn't have cash on him, to give me a tip, so he asked if I had Venmo. And I told him I did, but he wasn't sure how to figure out the app. He had brought his 10-year-old son with him that day, so the 3 of us were just kind of crowding the hallway right in front of the massage room, trying to figure out the Venmo app. While we were looking down at his phone, I see a woman kind of approaching me from the corner of my eye again, coming up from the hallway where the waiting room is. I assumed it was the receptionist, not the same receptionist from the first story. There's 2 receptionists that work for this chiropractor. This receptionist is white and about middle-aged, just very similar to the apparition I saw from the first story. That's why I assumed it was her. When I saw her coming down the hall, I thought, she needed to go to the bathroom or tell the doctor who was sitting in his office at that time that the next patient had arrived, or if someone canceled their appointment. I kept an open ear in case she was talking to the doctor, just to know if there was another patient was involved, because sometimes if they cancel, they don't always tell me right away, so I'm just, trying to keep an ear out in case, anything changed. But I never heard a woman's voice. After figuring out the whole Venmo thing, I immediately turned to the doctor sitting in his office and asked if the receptionist came in to talk to him, and he told me no. I looked into the bathroom, and yet again, the door was slightly open and the light was off. I told him and the patient about seeing a woman in the corner of my eye coming down the hallway, and because the 3 of us were crowding the hall right in front of the massage room, I moved out of the way so that the woman could get around me. And I remember very clearly, like, I kind of scooted so she skirted around me, like backing up against the wall. So again, that's why I thought nothing about it. It was just a very natural interaction. And then when I said this, the patient admitted something, that he thought he saw something too, but just dismissed it because, again, we were so focused on something else that you don't really give something like a person passing through much thought. And then the doctor joked about saying it was the same woman I saw before. So now we have a joke that, you know, since this woman always seems to be heading towards the bathroom, she has an eternal UTI. I joked saying it was a patient who died while waiting for her appointment. So she's just eternally waiting to be seen by the doctor. Well, anyway, that's my little ghost story, or stories. I don't usually see anything, so it was kind of exciting for me to see these things, like have these experiences, especially when you're in a very mundane place like work. I do have a few other stories if anyone is interested, but it's nothing like I had seen anything or heard a voice, you know, it's more of like a, I don't know how to describe them. Like, some of them were just experiences where like something happened and there's no rational explanation for it. And there's other, you know, like dream-like experiences where, you know, I felt like I was very much awake. I don't know how much people are interested in that, just because like people would very much just say, oh, it's just a dream, but I don't know, they were kind of weird, and I remember them very vividly, and the fact that I was in my bed, or, you know, just I felt like I was awake, just very drugged. But I mean, again, if that's something you want to hear, I can share it. Otherwise, I just want to say thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe, and, you know, share any strange, unexplainable experiences maybe you had happen to you. You know, I love reading about other people's ghost stories. You know, it's exciting. I don't know. Anyway, have a good one. Goodbye.